What's up, everyone? My name is Sertak, and I've been doing Amazon FBA for over 4 years now. Next to me, I have Willis, who has been one of my first students since I started making videos, been on TikTok, Instagram, and so on. And this is a really interesting case. Before we have Willis introduce himself, because it's not like Willis was new to Amazon. He dabbled into sneakers when he was first starting off, and then he got into other things and some other stuff. Then college came around, and now Willis he went from being very inconsistent in business to finding that consistency through him putting together his own routines. And now he's hitting what, $50,000 a month now?
Yeah, $50,000 a month now.
So yeah, let's get it started straight off the bat, Willis. Let's go with high school because you're fairly young. How old are you?
I'm 22.
22. So yeah, let's start off with like the ending of high school, how you got dabbled into, because we all start off with e-commerce, not Amazon necessarily, but we get into online business one way or another. So what was high school like? What was college like? Like, tell me a little bit about your early life, and then, we'll go into how you found your path on Amazon.
Oh boy, getting on Amazon. Amazon's the biggest marketplace in the whole entire world. So going back to high school, I always enjoyed selling things. I always had a passion for flipping things. I went to Brooklyn Tech, and as you may or may not know, that is the biggest high school in America, and the school is built in like a figure 8 formation, so there's a lot of surface area. There's a lot of students. It's 8 floors tall, had like, I think, 6,000 students.
Yeah. I never knew that either.
Yeah, bro. So back in high school, like, I saw a market for selling things to my peers, because like kids would show up to school hungry, or they'd be bored in between classes. So what I did was I had a really big duffel bag, and I actually still use that duffel bag for the gym, and I would stuff it full with candies, sodas. Back when fidget spinners were a thing, I used to sell those in class too.
My first big win was the fidget spinners.
Yeah, exactly. So I just saw like a need for like what people wanted in school. So whatever I saw a market for, I would bring to school and I would sell. And I would literally just run a concession stand out of my duffel bag. So in between classes, it was just, me, like a tiny little Asian kid with a huge duffel bag, running through the halls. Every single day, I would take the longest route to the next class, and I would just sell a whole bunch of stuff in between.
And this was high school?
This was high school.
So what got the early entrepreneurship thing to like fizzle out when you were doing the duffel bag stuff?
Yeah, so like back then, when I was selling the stuff out of my duffel bag, it wasn't much money, right? But like $1 to a kid in high school was like 1,000, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But after like I got tired of that like hustling out of a duffel bag phase, I started venturing into a whole bunch of different things. So I started venturing into sneakers. That was when Yeezys first started popping up.
Oh yeah.
That's when
the hype beast market started coming around, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I got into Yeezys for a couple years. I used to, whenever Yeezys came out and people hit on the Adidas app, I would lowball my friends, and I would buy a whole bunch of stuff. I would stock up, and then I would slowly sell it individually. And after that, I started getting into the clothing industry. I really liked fashion at the time, so I started my own clothing brand, and it was called The Last Piece, and I ran that for a couple years until high school ended.
Oh really? Like it went on for a pretty long time?
Yeah.
Well, what was the revenue like when you were running the clothing brand?
Oh man, I don't even remember, but I made a couple $1,000s off of that back in high school.
I mean, back in high school, that's pretty impressive.
That was a lot of money.
You have no expenses. Everything you make is yours to spend.
Yeah, and I saw like a need for the people, right? Because when you're in high school, a lot of kids didn't have a lot of money. So the reason why I created that brand was to create very affordable clothing. Because hoodies, I used to sell those for $20-$25. T-shirts, I used to sell those for $12. So I remember just walking to school and everyone would be wearing my clothes.
And why did the sneakers fizzle out? Because a lot of people see a lot of success when it comes to sneakers. Like I know people that's doing $500,000 to $1 million on Amazon easy when it comes to selling sneakers.
Yeah.
Why did you stop selling sneakers and get into the clothing? And then what did you do after the clothing?
Yeah, so I kind of yo-yoed for a bit, right? So I went into sneakers. I fell in love with that. I loved buying and selling shoes. And then like I wanted to expand. Like I always had the vision to do more, to scale a larger business. So I went into clothing because I thought it would be a lot more scalable. I would be able to make a lot more money from doing it. But after high school, like I didn't feel passionate about clothing anymore. So I went back to reselling sneakers, and that's where I really saw my reselling game take off. because this is around when college was first starting, and I started selling a lot more on StockX and Goat, and now like I started realizing there's a whole entire market out there outside of your hot network, like the people that you see at school, right? Now I see the market for selling to people all over the United States, selling stuff on the internet. So
Yeah, it's a much wider net now.
yeah.
But what was your mindset when you were doing sneakers? Why did you think it wasn't scalable as opposed to, you know, having your own clothing brand?
Yeah, so when I was doing sneakers, you're kind of at the mercy of the big brands that manufacture these sneakers, like Nike and Adidas. They don't really like resellers, so there's just no way for you to press a button and order 50,000 pairs of shoes to your warehouse. What I was doing was online arbitrage, right? I was just going on Foot Locker, Champs, Nike, and I was just milking like Rakuten cashback rewards, credit card rewards. Sometimes they would have like spring promos, holiday specials. So I would just take advantage of that, buy shoes discounted from their website, and just resell it on Go, StockX, eBay, etc.
And were you selling on Amazon at that time, or did you
I was
get
not.
into? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, before I started selling on Amazon, the reason why I was doing eBay, Mercari, Poshmark, and these things like directly before Amazon is because I thought Amazon was just like this huge professional platform.
Yeah.
And it was really complicated to sell on it because
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that went into it. Like, you know, just creating an account was it's not the easiest thing. You know, you go on eBay, you create a listing, you take a picture of your product, and you sell it. But on Amazon, you're selling on the products. It's much more different than what these other platforms got you used to. So, what was the reason why you were on all of these other platforms, many more than what I used to do, and not Amazon?
I had the same mindset as you actually. Like I just thought Amazon was this really professional marketplace. The barrier to entry was like all the way up here. It seemed really daunting. So when I was first starting out, I just wanted something low barrier to entry, something that was easy to get into. And when it came to these platforms, StockX, eBay, Goat, you just enter your email, create a password, and you're ready to sell.
And StockX is the same thing when it comes to like eBay and stuff.
Yeah,
'Cause
super
yeah.
easy.
Oh, really?
For StockX, it's sort of like Amazon, right? But for sneakers, like all the shoes that exist are already in their database. You know how like you have a SKU on Amazon, the ASIN? You pretty much just have the SKU number that's on the shoe box. You type it in and it pops up on StockX.
Oh, wow, I never knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only thing about that is like it's very low barrier to entry, right? And what you see in most low barrier to entry businesses is that it's very competitive. People are like they're slashing prices on each other. They're constantly undercutting by $1, so it's always a race to the bottom when you sell on these platforms.
Yeah, and I feel like since there's not that many sneakers, like of course there's tons of sneakers out there, but everyone is usually competing for the same releases, the same things, and I think that's why the barrier of entry is so easy because all you need is just to land these sneakers and you can just go on and sell it on these platforms.
Yeah.
But I mean, barrier to entry with Amazon is easy too. So what is the main difference between Amazon that you saw with Amazon than you did with StockX, Go, or all these other platforms?
What I noticed with Amazon is when I first started, I started with only a couple $1,000s, right? So
Couple thousand.
Yes.
Well, how much are we talking?
I started.
It could
Okay,
be 10,000. It could be 2,000.
I started with $50,000, and this was the money that I saved up from doing my sneaker business. But my first order, my first shipment for my Amazon business was about $2,000-3,000. So when I received that order, since this was a very beginner level distributor, right? You don't really need much to start. The minimum order quantity for them was $800, and they'll put it on a truck and they'll send it to your warehouse. The difference between that distributor and the distributor that I work with now is that since the barrier to entry is so low, when you buy your product, maybe your product comes in a couple of days later. By that time that it comes in, you get it prepped and you get it shipped out to the fulfillment center. Someone has already tanked the price to break even level. Whereas some distributors, they require you to have a warehouse, have a commercial address. Others require you to have a forklift, right? Some of them don't have a lift gate. Because the barrier to entry for these distributors are much higher, it's much less likely that someone will undercut your listing when you send it to the Amazon warehouse.
Right. So when you were first starting off, did you start off with the wholesale model directly?
Yeah.
Because let's get into Amazon. How was your introduction to Amazon? How did you get started when it comes to selling on Amazon.com?
Yeah.
And of course, isolating away from every other platform, just focusing on Amazon and why?
Oh boy, this was a fun one. This is a fun story to tell. Um, so when I was reselling sneakers on StockX and Goat, I felt like there was a ceiling to what you can do, right? Because I was buying these shoes retail. I was just buying them discounted with like promo codes and specials. So I just felt like it was a constant grind to find new sneakers to sell. Every single day I have to go on these foot sites, Nike, Champs, Adidas, and I would have to constantly farm new links and promo codes so that I can find these profitable sneakers. I felt like I was being very limited to how much I can earn. So
And is it? Did you feel this is one of the feedback I get from Amazon is that
Yeah.
people say that when you go on Amazon, there's a possibility of not a possibility, but Amazon is a platform for you to grow a business where all of
Yeah.
these other platforms are just a way of making money as a
Yeah.
like just like finding the next hustle and trying to hustle and make money
Yeah.
and flipping products and making cash. Where Amazon is something you're building if you want autonomous and grow a huge business on.
yeah, I agree.
Is that the same feeling that you had?
Yeah, I was gonna get into that because like when I was grinding out these foot sites, right, I would have to constantly go on these websites and put in more work in order to find new
Mhm.
profitable sneakers to sell. Whereas for Amazon now, now that I'm doing the wholesale model, if I go to a beauty distributor and this month I bought 50 different products from them,
Yeah.
right? Once I receive them in my warehouse, I prep and ship it. After I sell out of all my inventory, next month I can just come back and click a couple buttons and those items are getting shipped to my warehouse. It's very easy to do this because the work that you put in to find these profitable items, it compounds. So this month if I order from one distributor and I sell all these products out, next month I'll find another distributor and I'll create another purchase order with them. And the following month, like if I need to reorder, I just click two buttons and I'm already reordering from both these distributors.
Right, and when you were starting with Amazon, I'm guessing
Yeah.
it wasn't as easy as like just clicking a few buttons and reordering these
Most
things.
definitely.
This
not.
is something that just started happening recently
Yeah.
for you because you, from what I know, you slowly got into the groove of
Yeah.
being more consistent.
Yep.
I know you had like, even though you have a ton of experience, I know you had some months where you dipped below the $10,000 a mark,
Yeah, I did.
a month mark, which
Mhm.
is like, for everyone that doesn't know Amazon, if you're doing under 10,000 or 5,000, like you barely have a business. You're not really generating any revenue. So,
Yeah.
what went from you first starting off, you gaining that knowledge, and being very very consistent, and then slowly building up that 50K per month mid range.
Yeah, if you look at my Amazon, my seller app, my 12-month history looks like a roller coaster ride. Like it went up like this. 1 month it was 20K, and then it dipped all the way down to like almost zero, and it just went like this the whole entire time, the whole entire year. And the reason for that was because I just had a lot going on. When I started selling on Amazon, I actually did retail arbitrage, and what I would do is I would go into the Nike store and I would just scoop a whole bunch of shoes off the shelf because everything was just profitable. But I realized that doing this business, it just wasn't very sustainable long term, right? Because how I saw it was like driving an unreliable car when I
Yeah.
went to the Nike outlet. Sometimes I would go in, it would work. Like I would check out like 200 pairs of shoes out of one store. But other times I went, the manager would just watch me like stack all my shoes up at the front counter, and then as soon as I went to the cash register to check out, they're just like, "Yeah, we're not letting you check out 200 pairs of shoes, bro." So they just made me leave, and I was just like, "Okay, well, that's just it is what it is." Right? It was a great business for a while, but I knew that this would come to an end, right? And it was pretty easy money for what it was. Like it was just driving to the store, scooping a bunch of shoes, bringing it home, and listing on Amazon. Yeah, so at the Nike store, I was checking out 200 pairs of shoes at a time, but I realized that this business model was just not very sustainable long term because I'm at the mercy of these store managers whether or
Yeah.
not they'll let me check out, right? It's sort of like a dice roll. So after that, like I decided to just cut it off and start learning a new business model on Amazon. So after that, I just stumbled upon private label and I stumbled upon wholesale. I decided to give private label a shot. And when I was doing that, I was doing product research for a couple of weeks. and I got in contact with the distributor in China, manufacturer in China. I got connected with the manufacturer in China, and they started producing my product. And once that happened, it went quiet. Like there's nothing else to do. I just had to wait a couple months for my product to come in the mail. So
what was the investment like when you were doing private label?
it was $6,000.
Is that all inclusive with the listings, pictures, everything?
Yes, it was like 6,000 give or take. I forgot the exact number,
Mhm.
but yeah, I failed miserably at private label. It just wasn't successful for me. Not saying that if I were to try again, I wouldn't be successful, but it was just because it was peak of the pandemic. Prices were all the way up here. Gas prices were super high. There was a labor shortage. My shipment got stuck at the port for like 2 months. So
Mhm.
it took 7 months for my inventory to arrive. By the time that arrived, I had way too many competitors, and they just undercut me, and I was just no longer profitable. So I just had to call my inventory back from Amazon, and it's still sitting in my basement today. And
What was your
This
first?
is-
What was the product?
it was a bamboo Ziploc bag holder.
Oh man, I see those everywhere.
Yeah.
I actually had some girl message me directly on Instagram
Yeah.
about the same exact listing.
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, when I first listed, the problem with doing private label is you do product research, you find a hot trending product from the manufacturers, either on Alibaba or maybe you found some on India, and it looks hot. You find a listing that's selling a ton of times, not a lot of reviews, so they're not really aged in the market. And then, you place the order for that product. The order comes in 1 month, 2 months, if nothing really goes wrong.
Yeah.
The product comes in, you go to list it on Amazon. By the time you list it on Amazon, now not only do you have all of these foreign sellers that's selling on the US marketplace because they got the same exact leads that you did, you don't have the cheapest price. And those listings that you were looking at that wasn't really well aged have a ton of reviews now. You're competing against 20 people with the same exact product. So I still feel like private label is a good business model if you're doing something to differentiate yourself from everyone else and not just sourcing from these manufacturers that are making generic products. Because if you throw your logo on something and you call it your brand, there's nothing else that's stopping someone else from throwing their logo on something and saying that's their brand. Now, when a consumer is going on Amazon to buy these products, all they're seeing is a bunch of bamboo Ziploc bag holders. It's just 20 listings, all the same. Which ones do they buy from? They buy from the one that's the cheapest with the highest reviews, and that's about it.
Or if you have the biggest bankroll, they buy from the one that's at the top of the page.
Exactly. Or if you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars into advertising. And that is just private label as a gist. Back then, you could throw shit against the wall and it'll stick on Amazon. You'll make a lot of money. Anything you put up on Amazon. But now people are becoming smarter. There's a lot of opportunity, a lot of money to be made. So there's ways you have to maneuver, and you have to be creative. You have to get better at marketing to be able to succeed on Amazon. But yeah, tell us what happened after your private label journey.
Yeah, so while I was waiting for the products to arrive from China, I just didn't want to sit there and do nothing while waiting for it to come. So I started looking into wholesale, and I realized these products, they come in, like they're from the US. And you can place an order, have it come to your warehouse, and ship it back out to Amazon Fulfillment Center the same week.
So the lead time is much, much less.
Yeah, it's much, much less. And during the pandemic, it was a lot easier to get inventory too, right? So when I looked into Amazon Wholesale, I was like, wait, this is way more intuitive than doing private label. So when I got started, I just wanted to go full send into wholesale and just wait for my private label product to arrive, and whatever happens with it happens. Yeah, and this was the same time that I started finding out about your Discord group on TikTok, because I was just scrolling, looking for inspiration, and then you popped up, and I looked at your profile, and I saw a Discord link to sign up for your group, and it was only $25 a month at the time.
Yeah, that was the beta stage before we had any videos and anything, and people were just messaging me. They're like, we're having trouble finding distributors. We're having trouble talking to suppliers. They need basic help. So I just put together this group chat where I'm like, all right, guys, if you guys want answers to your questions, I'm not going to deal with just anyone, but just pay this small $25 a month fee, and then it'll just make sense for me because everyone's interests are based on money. So I'm like, all right, if I'm gonna do this, if I'm gonna spend my own time, I gotta get paid from it. So we created this Discord group for $25 a month, and immediately about like 100 people joined. And
Yeah.
Willis was, I think, one of the first 10.
Yeah, I joined within the first 10 days.
Yeah. That was insane. So here we are from that first day to now. So let's talk about like what happened.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like everything you learned in the group, but how has the group, or how has you reaching out to other people that's more successful than you in the wholesale business kind of shift your mindset with like your revenue looking like a roller coaster to what it is to this day?
Yeah, I think just networking with people, and luckily me getting in early and having your guidance, like having you handhold me through the process and kind of slapping me across the head too, like when I was being stupid. So
I mean, just today. Just today.
That too.
Yeah.
I really came here. I was gonna do a podcast with sweatpants and a hoodie, and he had to slap my head and tell me like, dude, you're not dressed.
Appearance, guys, for everyone that's watching this, I know there's a lot of people that say this doesn't matter, but we do live in a appearance world, and we are in an appearance business as well, the
Yeah.
wholesale business. Wholesalers are old people. They're like 50 plus years old. So if you're a kid that's dressing up, we all look fairly young. Everyone that's under 30 will look fairly young. You have to present yourself always in a professional manner. You have to look nice. You have to act nice. You have to know what you're talking about, and you have to present yourself as if you're running $1 million business. And that is the only way you'll succeed. Appearance matters a lot. And that is the one thing, that was a lesson well learned for Willis.
Yeah.
He had the lesson learned a few months ago when he went to an ASD trade show, and he had the same feeling. One of his mentors told him to show up in sweatpants and a hoodie because
Whatever
he
you're
said,
comfortable with.
yeah. So and you're talking to other suppliers that are been in the business for 20 years. They show up to work every day in a suit or dress pants or something, slacks and stuff. Now imagine you being under 25, you're showing up to them to do business, and they're sending you thousands of dollars worth of products, or they're talking to many other people. They just look at you and they're not going to take you seriously. Appearance matters, and the way you carry yourself, the way you present yourself is one of the most important things, not in just Amazon, but in just business and life in general. And yeah, let's continue.
Yeah, but the reason why my sales chart was looking like this was because making the transition from retail arbitrage into wholesale, it was pretty brutal because I had quite a bit of capital. Like I told you, I started out with $50,000, right? And when I was reselling sneakers, I would spend all my cash, and then on top of that, I would leverage my credit card a good amount, about like $30,000-$40,000. So, like all in with all my capital turning itself, it was probably about $90,000 at a time. So when I took a break from that and I got into wholesale, it was really hard to not spend money. Like it just didn't sit well with me. So because of that, I got really hasty when it came to product research. And what you taught was you should never go in and place an order without fully understanding what's going to happen, or without fully knowing the data. And what I did was I got hasty, and I just wanted to spend more money and have that money working for me, and that burned me really bad. So like an advice that I would give is just don't eat shit in the beginning. Like don't get hasty. Like take your time and just be humble, because your money is power.
And taking your time is not that, like, we're not even talking about a long period of time. We're talking about a month, 2 months of just putting your head down and just learning about everything.
Yeah.
Because you got to understand, when you're building a business, you start from the foundation up, right? You have to lay the cement in the ground first for you to have a strong foundation. The problem is people try to make the numbers work. They don't understand. They're like, hey, I think it's going to go up. This is not a thinking business. This is a data-based business. If the numbers don't work, you can't make it work. And if you do, you want to be hasty, you want to spend money, you lose your money.
Yep.
It's the correlation is there. It's very, very straightforward. So one of the things I tell people, well, one of the things I tell everyone, do not throw a single dollar into something until you understand as much as you can possibly understand before starting. Now, of course, business is not stagnant, business is dynamic. So there's going to be a lot of things you learn throughout the way. And there's certain things that you learn only by doing. So starting off small and, starting wide and getting that experience of placing that first order goes a long way. I've heard a lot of horror stories about people placing $10,000 orders for their first order.
Mm-hmm.
The products show up, they don't even know how to prep. Congratulations, you bought the products. Now what? Where are you going to prep them? Do you have enough tape? Do you have enough boxes? Do you have
Yeah.
poly bags? Do you have bubble wrap? Do you even have you ever thought about this? How do you even upload the shipping plan? Now half of your products is hazmat products that you
Mhm.
can't even sell on Amazon because you're a new
You got burned
seller.
by that.
I got learned. I got burnt. You know, a lot of these things you learn from trial and error, but in a time of content being so readily available to you now, there's no reason why you should be getting burned like I did 5 years ago because content was so scarce and there's a lot of fluff on the internet. But now there's a lot of people you can reach out to. There's a lot of things you can learn before starting something and diving full, like full send into something, right?
Yeah.
So what was the mindset switch like? Because even I know that like even like 6 months into the group
Yeah.
and you were still not seeing the success that you wanted to see,
Yeah.
despite having the knowledge to be able to do over $100,000 in sales
Yeah.
every month. What was the thing that took you below? I know your rock bottom was like hitting like under $10,000 a month.
My rock bottom was like $5,000 months. That was
Yeah.
really bad for me.
So what took you? And this is the last thing we can touch on before we end the show for our first episode. But
Mhm.
what was the thing that took you from that $5,000? Hitting that rock bottom, having that knowledge, being really inconsistent, to growing base pretty much 10x to that, and not consistently hitting the same numbers every single month.
Yeah, so I read this one quote, and what it said was, you don't rise to the level of your goals, but rather you fall to the level of your systems. And this really resonated with me, right? And
I like
what that forced me to do was, every single week I would devise a system to find new suppliers, because I was struggling with that at the time. This was one of my biggest bottlenecks, just not having enough inventory.